there, Eric?
I'm here.
Hi,
You here?
Yeah, I can't see you, but go when it goes live. Right. Hello and welcome. In today's Frontier series of sessions, we're going to focus on AI opportunities. So the whole concept, just to remind people who haven't seen one of our Frontier Partner Series webinars, is about taking businesses into the new world, encompassing AI, as well as traditional business applications. So it's aimed at end customers as well as Dynamics partners. So I'm really pleased to welcome in today's session Eric Cornett from Polaris Technologies, one of our long-standing partners and really an innovator in the world of understanding how organizations can take advantage of AI within their businesses. I've known Eric for a while, and he's really also kind of a historic background in the world of ERP and business apps. So, Eric, would you like to quick intro to yourself and Polaris?
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, so absolutely right. I've been doing ERP a lot longer than I care to admit. Going back to when you'd buy an ERP system and it came to you in a box of floppy disks. And been with a Microsoft partner since 2004, and really what's happening now is really, really fascinating. I'm excited talking about AI, and I speak about it that we can't speak about ERP unless we're speaking about AI, and that's what we're talking about today.
Absolutely, and really, this is kind of the first question that when I speak to customers and my friends outside of work that run businesses or in businesses, they all have been hammered with this kind of, we need AI, you need to use AI, you need to, but they really don't know where to start. And I think we're probably 3 years into this kind of AI transformation, but I think that this question is still paramount into the mindset of business leaders. So that's kind of what we'll focus on today. And just to kind of set the scene, the way that kind of I frame these discussions is we really need to talk to the business around what are the needs. So what are the actual benefits and requirements that where AI is going to solve a business challenge. We don't want to do it just for the sake of putting a new technology in. It's not about a replacement of something. It's about trying to deliver against a business pain or an opportunity that we see, right? And then coupled with that is, what is the real scope that we're delivering? So good project management control. It's not an opportunity for suppliers to write big purchase orders, right? So it's a controlled scene. So that's kind of where we're going to talk about. So what I've been really impressed with what you're doing, Eric, in terms of how you've kind of really built an offering, I guess, for your customers around this area, and especially as historically you've been kind of very much ERP focused. So would you like to kind of talk a little bit through that?
Absolutely. So we call it the AI path, and it's interesting what you said, Sam, about you speaking with other business owners that you know, and they all say, well, what's this AI thing? I have that same type of experience, and it really hit me hard last April when there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that had said, and I'm paraphrasing, 80% of all companies out there know they have to use AI, they want to use AI. 70% of those have no what that means. And that's when we were talking, you and I, Sam, and you were launching soon, or you had the idea about this AI discovery, because you're absolutely right that we need to understand what are the needs. This is another technology. And so we're both old enough to remember the dot-com days. And when the internet came about, everybody said the same thing. Oh, we have to be on the internet. We have to do this. But what does it actually mean? And we've been implementing technologies into companies. There's a right way to do it, and there is a wrong way to do it. And you have to understand what really should be done versus what we think we can do. And this is the path. And it all starts off with your product, which is the guide, which is the AI discovery for us. That's a 30-minute exercise that we go through just to talk with the customer. Say, okay, where are the friction points inside of your organization. I asked the question, what is it that your people don't want to do every Thursday? What is that thing that they go, oh God, it's Thursday. I just don't want to do this. Okay, let's dive into that. Is that something that we can automate with this new tool set? And then we launch, and we get through that, and that does a high level identification. And then we have the AI readiness that we can talk about that really digs in deep. That's a program that we put together in conjunction with Harvard Data Science around to develop the AI strategy and an AI framework to identify the areas within the company. How will AI exist within the company, and also where it will not exist, and then have a methodology to implement what we have identified, have a priority saying this should be first, this should be second, tie it to ROI, because everything has to be tied to that. And then we actually, if we want to go forward, we can build those. And then that's AI operate, that we actually get those agentic workflows in place. So this is the AI path that we've come up with.
What I really like about this is that it's none of this is really technology at the moment, right? It is about going in there, offering real advice to your customer or the customer around where the opportunities exist. How do we categorize the importance of those opportunities? Mm-hmm. Then before we even start something, how ready are we to deploy that? Right? Because you can have the best idea in the world, but if your underlying technology stack doesn't support this, you're going to be in a whole heap of trouble, right?
Sam, that is absolutely right. And this just happened the other week that we engaged with this new customer down in Texas, and they're all gung-ho. Oh, we need to do this. Let's really identify. And then part of this discovery process and this analysis process is what you just said, to understand the technology stack. This company happens to be running an AS400. And okay, I can crack a DB2 database because I'm old like that, but I don't know how. So, okay, let's reset. First thing we have to do is we have to uplift the technology, and then we can do this. So, absolutely right. We have to understand what is the technology set that we have to play with.
And then the operate piece should not be forgotten either, because it is about governance. It is about responsible AI. It's making sure that we're also validating what the AI agent or the AI scenario is providing us, because we can't assume it's correct. How do we keep? It comes back to governance. How do we keep checking? It's right. How do we police the AI? How do we make sure it's doing what it should do? And it's not a simple case the computer says yes and we have to follow it blindly. So I think making sure we're prepared for that. I think that's again another area a lot of organizations perhaps don't spend enough time looking at. Perhaps they think it's a race to removing headcount, whereas it's probably a bigger picture of play that they need to think about as well.
Absolutely right, Sam. And that really falls into the AI readiness piece, which is the middle part around the governance. Where should AI play? Where should it not play? What does it have access to? Who owns those decision processes? And it's not the AI. So where does humans fit into these agentic workflows? And then how do they do that? We speak about it as that we have the opportunity to hire an unlimited number of new college graduates and to sit them down and then to give them a job. But you have to say, okay, so do it this way. We have to train the AI flows to do this. But then when you have a problem, raise your hand, ask for help. And so that has to be designed. And you would never get a new person coming out of university and give them the keys to your whole company and say, have at it, I'll just try. No, you lose your company within a week. So we have to do that.
Absolutely. So kind of drilling down a little bit then. So in terms of the process you go through within your organization, so AI discovery, do you want to kind of talk to me kind of what you're trying to do in this stage of the engagement?
Right. So this is on the Guide 365 platform that we spend this 30 minutes with them. And we first talk about business overview. Who are you? Tell me about your company. I think the next slide really shows but we touch up, well, that's education. I'm sorry. If we can go to our next one. Yeah, here. So we talk about business overview first. So give me 60 seconds. Talk about your company. What do you do? How do you make money? Where are you losing time? Where does you feel constrained. What are the things you don't like doing on Thursday? Okay, so but we first understand their business really quickly. Where do you play? And then our next conversation inside of this 30 minutes, which is the next slide, if you'd like to punch through, is talking about the friction points, pain points. This is where we really spend most of the time for this initial part, is that we talk about what are the things you hate doing and just have a conversation. What is repetitive? AI is fantastic at doing things that are repetitive and have a low consequence of action or inaction. That's the definition. And so we look into the business for those areas, and there's a bunch of them, so that we can take those, put humans in the loop, and then elevate the people out to do other more meaningful things. So where does work pile up? That goes off of the system theory of constraints. Where is the work piling up that we need to attack? If we could hire more people, where would they look? And where would they fit? And they don't have to be people now.
This is where I think when we think about the sort of personas if I take the partner world, doing, let's say, ERP projects, my background in consulting really is in that area. These are all kind of things that actually an ERP consultant or a CRM consultant would be comfortable doing in terms of asking. We're obviously moving at a different level of engagement, but actually, it's really understanding business processes. That's a skill set in itself, and being able to drive that from the customer. So yes, our tool helps do that, but actually it's still down to the individual running the workshop with the client to draw this out and work with them. So again, it's not just relying on technology, it's providing that expert advice to that customer, right?
You're absolutely right. And I love that you mentioned about ERP. And as we said earlier, you can't be talking about ERP unless you're talking about AI, because you're doing the customer a disservice. So when you're implementing ERP, what are we really doing? We are designing workflows within the company to get the job done. So that's what we're doing with AI. So you don't want to just implement an ERP system and then come back 6 months later and go, oh yeah, just kidding. We should redesign this workflow to take advantage of AI. And they are different. You need to be thinking about that too. That's a point. You just don't want to overlay AI on top of an existing human workflow. You need to rethink.
Sorry, Eric. So you're doing this in conjunction on new ERP projects as well. So you're doing an AI discovery at the same time. Is that the kind of the approach you're taking?
Absolutely, we are. We're doing one right now. Actually, it's going on at this moment. Actually, right. It's a disservice if you aren't doing both.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I think that's where I've seen some of the partners out there effectively still doing the old school ERP project and then say, we'll do AI afterwards, let's get the core in. But actually that's not the right way, is it, to really think about this?
It's not. So take an easy one. Just imagine the purchasing department that they take the daily requirements coming out of the nightly ERP run, or however often that runs, and they look at the items and they decide what to execute, what to modify. Well, if you're going to train up people to do that and that's part of their daily workflow, and then you're going to take it away 6 months later saying, like, just kidding? No, you should say, how do we put agents in place? Well, let's walk before we run. Let's look at the C-class items for manufacturing and say, okay, let's have the agents deal with those, because the world's not going to burn down if we miss a purchase orders for some nuts, bolts, and screws. But where does a human validation fit? So yes, it needs to happen at the time that you're putting in and be a part of it.
And I guess the other, just finishing on pain points, really, pain points typically are monetized, right? So that's how, when we look at the return on investment, a pain point typically means there's a potential cost saving. And I guess you're drawing that out as part of your process in this area to build up the return on investment analysis.
Absolutely. It all has to be tied to ROI. We're not going to invest a large amount of money to put in this agentic workflow if it will never pay for itself. If it takes a human just 5 minutes a month to do this thing, I don't think we should automate that. We should look for.
And I think that's where some of the negative feedback around AI that has come in the press has been, well, we can't spend $500 a day to replace something that's going to cost, that's already costing me $20, right? It doesn't make any sense. So there's been a little bit of a evangelism about by some kind of in the IT industry around AI, where you're right, you've got to focus on, it's a business decision, right? If it makes business benefit, do it. If it doesn't, so we've got to come back to an ROI and make it stack up. So what I liked about going through your approach area is looking at that current system, because actually this also, and I think the other partners that we have in Guide using AI Discovery, they are using it to drive up ERP projects, because whilst the customer wants to do an AI project, what we find, or what they find, is that the underlying data systems of record aren't viable to be used in the AI project. So what are you looking for when you do this part of the evaluation?
Well, we're looking for technology that can support these agentic workflows. Are there connectors to their data? Where is their data? Is it good data? Is it clean data? Or is it data that, like, again, I'm going to pick on a purchasing department, that they don't have the right vendors assigned to the right item numbers, and so and they just live with it. They've never gone through the exercise to clean up, to say this is the preferred vendor and this should do this. So we have to look that the system can support it. Is the data siloed? Is it, we would have a manufacturing execution system, we have a CRM system, and they're all different, and the interconnection between them is people and paper. How much information is stored within their email system? Probably a lot. And so what are these systems, and can it support what people want? That's what we have to get to.
And I guess the other missing data source is what data is in somebody's brain that isn't documented, isn't stored anywhere, but is essentially making that decision-making process. And I think a lot of organizations still have a lot of human knowledge that we need to try and utilize, but utilize it, also have it documented in a system as well.
Yeah, and there we're touching upon a very human part of this process, which is fear. And there is a lot of tribal knowledge, which is generally in people's heads around things, and we're asking to extract some of that and put it into a system form that can be utilized. And people are naturally going to think, well, that's what I do. What am I going to do next? Well, that's my job. And we've all faced that countless times. And if you embrace it and say, okay, I don't have to do that anymore, I'm going to do this. There's always a pile of stuff that we never get to. This is the opportunity to do those things that will advance the company, will help the company, rather than doing that thing on Thursday we hate to do. It takes our day.
Yeah, and that's part of the kind of the change management journey that we need to take that organization on as well. So I guess then this AI boundary was also touching upon some interesting points. Really, it ties into governance, isn't it? How do we control what we're doing? Is the technology that we're about to deploy, is it robust? Is it stable? Is it going to do harm? Any points to raise in this area?
Yeah, I think the first question there is where that we just sit with it, and this comes after that we do this ideation where we come up with these great lists of opportunities, and then we rank them and say, okay, so where do we not want an automated agent to work and to play? So, and we have to really think about it from a worst case scenario. So what would happen if we turned an agent loose that is going to automatically issue purchase orders for every item that we have without any type of human observation? Well, that's risky, because you could have something come in to spark a demand that is higher. So we just did this. We actually designed up this agentic workflow to release purchase orders. However, there is a check that if the number that gets calculated is outside of one standard deviation from historical ordering patterns, it won't do it. It'll raise its hand. It calls for a purchasing manager. Okay, so that's what we think about after we come up with the list, is how do we put guardrails around these agentic workflows so we don't do harm? Also, do we want AI to have access to anything which is in human resources? Or how does GDPR play into this? I mean, those are the areas that we need to be thinking about.
Absolutely, and I think the term boundary is really important, isn't it? What is the AI model looking at? Is it things in your own domain, in your own data set of data? You know, your a small language model, or is it a large language model, and which obviously has more risk in associated with that. So I think that's a very important aspect to look at. And I know we're building a lot of AI within our guide platform, but we're very much focusing on the small language model to really drive some of the more critical thinking, because we can't control necessarily what's coming out of the bits that we don't have any sort of vetting over.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love this diagram. It took me quite a while to get my head around it, but I think this kind of demonstrates the sort of outputs you're working with clients to produce. And when I think about the conversation we started is what do they do? I think this is really kind of what you're getting at, is where this is how we would use it in the organization. So it's a good kind of example of, I guess, how you would work with your clients to produce that whole workflow.
Right, exactly. And this actually comes from an actual customer. Actually, that's a machine shop customer. And you can buy, I know of a couple of systems on the market that would be optimizing a machine shop, and they're very complex and they're very expensive. And there is an opportunity here to simplify it. And those systems are really out of touch from the mid-market. And so what AI is allowing is this advanced technology to come down into companies that are of a size that traditionally couldn't afford this type of capability.
But this is a real example of actually an area in which a lot of typical ERP projects, you say, don't touch, right? We in an ERP project, we'll probably build the schedule of production, and we send it to the factory to build, and the bombs and all that sort of stuff, and then we expect a product at the end of it. Because the actual managing the machines and that stuff, unless you spend a lot of money on those sort of manufacturing execution systems, it's a lot of the smaller or mid-market companies haven't gone that far yet. And this is great that we can see AI having a big kind of opportunity. And I think this is where there is the next generation of AI where partners can start to build their own kind of temporalized solutions to make that even, basically you can build IP on top of your core offerings in a much faster way than you could have done before. As in, to build an MES solution would have taken a lot of effort and complexity, whereas now with AI we can do a lot of that through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So essentially, I guess you do that discovery, you get a report. The report has certain amount of information. Then, so the next stage, I guess, is that readiness piece. So what are you focused upon here? Obviously, you've got a few items there, but is it about getting the customer ready to start a project? Is that what you're focused upon in this stage?
Yeah. So the first part, which is the discovery with the guide product line, I mean, that gets them ready for that. That really gets both sides to understand. Yeah. Okay. So AI is something which is really valuable for us. Yeah. So our next step is we dive into the how, and this is a couple-week exercise that we really dig into those areas that have been identified, and we design them up inside of this framework. And it's a methodology that we educate the company on as far as how to be thinking about AI workflows, agentic workflows. And so that after we do these 5, 10, there is a methodology when the business changes, when a new idea comes to place, that you can bump up against this framework and know what to do. It's just not a one-off every single time.
Right.
And then to have a published AI strategy that actually goes into not only the workflow part, but also the user part. How do users need to be engaging with AI? Which tools should they be using? What should they not be doing? How do they use AI to prevent work slop? There's all kinds of writings around that right now. So this is the next step that we really dive in to have these two outcomes, which is a strategy and then this framework. And we then come out with this backlog of these are the things which are ranked. This is the number one thing that will benefit our company. And here is the ROI that we're going to do this. And that everybody's operating from the same page. We have the leadership plus everybody else within the company understanding what is AI and how that we're going to use it. That's the big thing. Having that clear understanding on all sides first before we do anything.
And this is all scalable, isn't it? I mean, you can have a small organization that takes a small element of this, and it can be tailored to the budget and the appetite of the customer. So we're not trying to overwhelm people with doing massive transformation. It's an ongoing thing, which is also beneficial because the rate of change of the actual AI capability is also changing on a seemingly daily basis at the moment. As well. So that was kind of a great overview of how Polaris really takes this to market and how you work with clients. But I thought we touched on many of these conversations in the session today. But if I was to kind of ask you a couple of questions really related to this, what are the biggest challenges you've seen in the customer engagements you've had to date regarding this AI process you've been running with?
It's really understanding what is AI. That's been the biggest challenge, and that's the first thing we do. There's one slide that we had skipped over that I can just speak to. That's the very first thing we do, is that we have an education session for everybody within the company. What is AI? And it starts off with, what is machine learning? That's tier 1. And that's been around since about 2016 when there was that major breakthrough. And that's for pattern recognition and for analysis used in the medical industry like crazy, which is awesome. Level 2 is what everybody thinks AI is, which is a generative AI, which is the ChatGPTs and the Claude and all of that, and the Copilot. We have to mention Copilot right now. And so that's level 2. And then you get into level 3, which is agents, one single agent, and then level 4, which is agentic workflows, which is the real power. So the biggest thing is getting people onto the same page. What is AI? Because everybody is coming to the table with an opinion, which is valid, but let's get them onto the same sheet of music. And then we go from there.
Really good point. And I guess the final point I'll touch on is really we do need to link to source systems, right? And I think that there is still very much a and I was talking to somebody about it yesterday. I think it's going to come back to the ERP and CRM has probably become not as fashionable as AI in terms of the cool. I'm not sure ERP's ever been cool, but it's been like everybody wants to be an AI consultant and not so much an ERP consultant. But actually, ultimately, I think in order to get AI working really properly, you do need to have great systems of records, and I think especially ones that have built-in AI technology within it. And a shameless plug for the Microsoft Dynamics suite of families, but I mean the way the Microsoft are building AI infused into their applications is a really good head start for customers.
It really is. And yeah, I've been a Microsoft partner forever, huge fan, been working with the Dynamics product line forever, love it, big believer in it because it's good. And what they're doing really makes a whole lot of sense. And so it is interesting that everybody wants to be an AI consultant. Well, I want consultants working for us that are ERP consultants, that are business process flow consultants. Yes. That's the big thing, because that's what ERP is. It's workflow. Now we have the capability to automate that. What was said back at Ignite last fall is ERP has gone from a system of record to a system of action. This new tool set allows us to make ERP exactly what we think it is. And we're having conversations with our systems now too, verbal conversations. And it's just fantastic what's going on. So it's elevating ERP to do what we've always thought it could do.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Eric, for your insight. Just in terms of plugging other things. So for those that are interested in in the Sears Guide AI Discovery application. We do have a session next Thursday morning, American East Coast time, in the afternoon GMT, run by Henry and Rose. So registers on LinkedIn. If you want to register, please go ahead and do that. If you want to know more about the work that Eric and his team at Flores are doing, there's Eric's contact details there. So really appreciate everybody joining this webinar, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sam. Thanks for all of it. I really appreciate it.